It's just up to me and decide when I want to go. What is up, everyone? This is Press X to Ramble. Press X to Ramble is a podcast where we get to ramble out whatever we want. And today we're rambling about Loki. If you're listening to this, you're only getting half the experience. To get the full experience, you have to go to pressxtostarttv.com/YouTube, which takes you to our YouTube channel. And there, you'll be able to watch this video and our other videos. And then make sure you like, subscribe. And I have a note here to watch our beautiful black faces. Yes, do that. Beautiful black faces. I am your host today.
I agree with only two of those words.
Beautiful and black.
I mean, like what? Like the faces aren't a thing. We don't have faces.
Just, I'll let you believe what you believe.
I am your host today, DJ, aka Sexy Bad Choices, aka Did you know that once Loki went into the void? Yes, we are going to start straight in spoilers, so sorry about that. Once he goes into the void, there are a plethora of Easter eggs. One of them being the Thanos copter. Yes, the Thanos copter actually makes its tragic demise in the void.
It's second MCU sort of I guess appearance, because his blade in Endgame in Infinity War is the blade from it's supposed to be a helicopter blade.
Oh, it's actually supposed to be?
Yes, that was where their big reference to the Thanos copter was initially.
Gotcha. That's fun. All right, well, who are you?
I am Avery Williams. Now just to keep it moving from there. I'm Avery. Hey guys, I've been here a bit.
Good. And then last up.
I am Jordan, aka Jordan Odin's son. from Earth 187. I guess.
187.
342. Whatever parallel dimension that has free ice cream.
Oh, wait, free like a dairy free ice cream, or
is this like a Bugsnat situation?
This is a situation where my headcanon is my headcanon. It should not be ridiculed. Keep it moving.
Oh, my bad. With that being said, let's talk about Loki. Actually, before we do that, I just want to make a note that my baby girl is off screen to my right.
The baby.
Your
little
right
baby. The baby.
Yeah, so I might be moving back and forth, but I'll mute my mic and do all that good stuff. So yeah,
let's go.
Let's talk about Loki. So as I said before in our little intro, we're not going to do the typical spoiler-free section and then spoiler. We're just going to talk about it because at this point, you're not clicking on this if you ain't watched Loki. Okay, we know this.
DJ didn't put that effort into making this really cool thumbnail, which I'm assuming is really cool if you didn't watch Loki already.
Right. So, with that being said, we can give our quick impressions about what we felt or how we. What was our take on this Loki series? So Avery, you can start first.
Okay, so prior to this, when of the three Disney Plus Marvel shows we knew were happening, Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Loki was the one I was the least excited for. I don't give a shit. No, that's not true. I like the character of Loki, but I'm not in love with him the way most of the MCU audience is. I have a thing with heroes and anti-heroes and villains and everything like that, and the joy of a character like Loki doesn't supersede the villainy of a character like Loki. Mm-hmm. And he's the character that straight up never... I have a hard time reconciling this character. I'm supposed to love and root for this character when this is the same character who was in New York City causing mass havoc, mass casualties with an alien invasion, and at no point seems to have repented for that. Like, he gets thrown in jail in Thor Dark World, but like he quickly gets out of jail and then ends up running Asgard. Like, I'm saying his death by Thanos' hands was the greatest comeuppance that character deserved. Yeah, that's how I feel about the Loki character. And so I wasn't very I wasn't very interested going into this show about a variant of Loki that I don't care about, because I have another big hang up about multiverse and time travel. in regards to how they fuck up a narrative and fuck up the cohesion of a narrative. So I didn't really care about this. I thought it was just be throwaway. I was immediately impressed by the first episode. I was like, but the second episode, I'm like, oh, they've got something going here. Third episode, I was like, oh, never mind. All my fucking annoyances and fears about the show are the same. Episode 4, okay, this is an interesting choice. This feels like an end of a series. There are 2 more episodes to go.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 5, a lot of this was bullshit. I don't give a shit about most of this episode. A lot of cool ideas in it, but like whatever. This is kind of dumb. Episode 6. The issue with all the other Marvel shows, for the most part, is how they've ended. Loki is the only one that I think 100% nailed its ending and then went above and beyond in regards to my expectations and my beliefs of what this show was going to be. It's now, of the 3, it's not my favorite. But I think it's the one that executed its ending and essentially its premise the most and ultimately has the biggest implication for Marvel going forward, which is super exciting and what I wasn't really expecting from any of these shows.
Okay. Jordan?
I share both of the same sentiment in this series, but I was thoroughly excited for it compared to the other 3 Marvel TV shows that we got this summer. I think WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, we have a pretty good understanding of those two characters in our content. But I think Loki, at least how it was being presented, was going to be this mystical, like out of Elseworlds type experience of subjects that we haven't seen from Marvel yet. I mean, I was a big fan of the Doctor Strange series or the Doctor Strange movie compared to a lot of the other Marvel films. So I thought that this was going to like really get into how different Marvel can get, and I think that's where Marvel is the strongest when it's away from the Avengers, when it's away from like the core hierarchy and getting like let's get weird with this shit, like let's get fucking strange, like where's Mephisto at or whatever, So
we see him in the stained glass, right?
Maybe I don't know. I was looking for the guy. He doesn't exist.
Right.
If I stop looking for him.
Acknowledging Mephisto is, hey, we have to acknowledge some sort of religious theocracy in this world.
Yeah.
But in terms of shows and everything, there was a bit of a bell curve. I think it started off fairly strong in the first one. Like there was a pretty comedic first episode, and hitting that classic Marvel stick. But then going into like I think the second or third one, when it had them trying to get to that ship, I was like, all right, this is dumb. But it ended very strong.
The third episode is bad.
Third episode.
It ended pretty strong, with the giant reveal, and I was like, even though that was kind of spoiled in the chat, I was like, you know what, it was good enough.
What's funny is it's only spoiled in the chat because after our Black Widow ramble, me and Jordan had an interesting conversation after the fact about what I thought was going to be a Loki, and like what happened is what I called, and so I went into our group chat just being nondescript as possible, forgetting that me and Jordan had this conversation and said I fucking called it, and Jordan's response is I'm just going to ignore everything about what you just said and just going to keep it moving.
Oh, okay. Because I read that, I was like, did I miss something?
Only thing I have to say is lesson learned. So, other than that, it was a pretty strong series. It is a surprising method of truly bringing this Phase 4 into context. Like this is we're about to get weird, everybody. We're not doing this fucking good guy bad guy shit. We're about to get really weird.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I kind of follow you guys' same sentiment. I will say though, for me, I actually enjoyed the show. Like my enjoyment for the show ramped up after every episode. So there was never really a moment where it felt like it dropped for me. The episode 3 when they were on Lamentus, and like I loved their interactions. There was some spotty points in there when it's just like, what's going on right now?
There are strong moments in that Lamentus episode.
Yeah.
That was when they were like together looking over the lake. Okay.
Yeah. It ended. It ended there. But
Loki. I mean, I know we'll get to this later, but Loki's kissing Loki's kind of weird. Just saying, kissing yourself.
I mean, he can turn into like a horse. That's a thing that happens in the actual mythology.
How narcissistic can you be when you fall in love with yourself? That's all I got to say.
That's how we got Fenrir.
No,
But like
that's how we got Sleipnir.
Sleipnir, is it Sleipnir?
Sleipnir's the horse.
You're right. You're right.
Fenrir's the wolf.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So like, I really, really enjoyed this show. It was one of those things where when I, saw the slate of TV shows, it was WandaVision. WandaVision, I was probably the most
WandaVision!
like, I don't really know how I'm gonna like this. And even watching that, like the first 2 episodes, I enjoyed, but I enjoyed more after knowing the full context of everything. So going back and seeing, it was like, okay, this is more impactful now. Falcon and Winter Soldier. Falcon and Winter Soldier is a thing where I love that show. I love that show for the blackness of it and what it for the whole Isaiah Bradley and the whole like Falcon becoming Captain America. Like I love it for that. There was points in there was just kind of like, all right, like they got kneecapped because of the whole COVID thing. So like that's another thing where I understand that show is
Every week, I would just wait and see if I see Bucky or Captain Falcon rushing down the street because a lot of that show took place in Baltimore. Like, go get him, go get him, Winter Soldier, fight the police. I guess. Are they good at Hydra?
Right. So yeah, like so for that show, like I understood like that's kind of working off of a handicap, whereas Loki was the one show where I was just like, I don't really know what we're gonna get out of this, and from the start, it for me because I just didn't have any kind of history or knowledge of this. I was pretty much a kid in the candy shop, just like, oh my god, TVA, their time, what? They can prune people. They can what? Like what is going on? So I just had so many questions. So like that more so intrigued me than pushed me away, I guess. So yeah, like I really really enjoyed Loki all the way up to the end. Like I thought there was some really really strong moments, and even at the end when I guess again we are spoiling stuff. I just feel weird like just outright spoiling stuff. But when Sylvie pushed Loki out of the
castle at the end of time.
yeah, and like he was looking at the screen. For me, it felt like that moment he flipped and he is like a good guy now.
No, like the moment speak on that point, and that's one of the things that I want to talk about especially with this version of Loki, especially with me going into this, not giving a shit about this character at all. I think they did a good job doing what essentially 3 movies had to do with turning Loki into a anti-hero in this show convincingly, to the point when he gets that moment with Sylvie where they're offered again essentially the future of the Marvel universe, and she makes a very selfish choice, and he makes the altruistic choice, but everyone thinks he's making the selfish choice. That's the moment I'm like, oh, this is where he becomes the good guy.
Yeah. Like I was saying the same thing to my wife Shireen, because you guys know. Anyways, I was saying the same thing to her. It was just like the show does a really really interesting thing where it starts and you only know Loki as the Loki, but then to TVA there are other Lokis, and to them this Loki is the quote unquote inferior Loki to Sylvie. Like Sylvie is put as the like superior Loki. Like she's stronger than this Loki, she's smarter than this Loki because she's gotten away from them or whatever. But then as the show progresses and it gets to the end, you see like for example the Loki fight where a bunch of different Lokis, it's like all these Lokis are unable to change. They're unable to break away from their own systems, and they all just want to rule something, and ultimately it just means nothing because they fight each other.
Their basic instincts are consistent across all universes.
Yes, which is mischief and survival. And to that point of Loki's ability to change, and why I take umbrage with the idea of Sylvie being the superior Loki. I think that's more of in jest and joking and things like that. If we take at faith what the TVA calls the sacred timeline, the Loki that we're presented with is the Loki. It's just taking it at point earlier in his time than he was supposed to.
Well, he was. I mean, why would you say that he's like the Loki though? Because
if we're looking at the sacred timeline, which is we'll get to that later. If we're looking at the sacred timeline, the only difference between this Loki and the Loki that we watched in all the Marvel movies is that this Loki at the end of the Avengers got away. That's the only difference. Well, the Sylvie Loki is a completely different Loki altogether and a completely different branch altogether. I don't think either one of them is superior or inferior because in regards to their power, Loki.
Here's the thing.
Real quick, I will say though, like I just to push back on that just a little bit. I think in the show, because Mobius presents Sylvie as that superior Loki, Loki starts to question himself, like, aren't I good enough, whatever. But then in the void, when he's talking to the other Lokis, he's propping Sylvie up because he's like, look, we're all guys. Sylvie is a girl. Like, she's different from us. Like, she is the one, essentially. So like he almost plays into it, but it's one of those things where,
to finish my thought about change, ultimately Sylvie as a character doesn't change.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that she is the one. I just think that they prop her as the one. Then it turns out she's actually just another Loki. It's just our Loki is the one that is
this Loki
one.
Being like the Loki that we follow, the one being considered the Loki, a part of the sacred timeline. His timeline did get pruned because when they took him out of it, that universe with the
like I said, he's not our Loki.
Fight doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, he's not our Loki, but out of all the Lokis that we see in the show, he's the closest that we can get to the Loki that we all know and remember.
Yeah. Right. So,
did they ever discuss? I mean, well, like when they were fucking around in Endgame, going back to specific times, which inevitably was them going to different dimensions to collect the stones.
So
was it ever?
It's
you go ahead, Avery, because I have my own theory about like the whole stones, what they're tied to.
Because like it's by the logic of this show, the minute they left the minute fucking War Machine cold cocked Star-Lord and left with the stone, and Thanos dipped as well, that universe is destroyed. There's no going back to it because it gets destroyed by the logic of this show because of the alterations that they made. This is not a reality that they can go back to, put the stone back, and it will go back to normal. They've changed things. Mm-hmm. That being said, this is one of the things I love and hate about the show.
Timey-wimey science.
It's not science. It's fucking. It's happy.
Science.
Multi-dimensional and time travel stories are so tricky to write in a ongoing narrative because they make everything else you do inconsequential.
Except for Bill and Ted.
I like when Endgame introduced time travel and they introduced it like, hey, we can't change our past. We can't change our future with anything we do. We're creating a branching timeline for everything we do. That made sense because I went with that. Like I went with that because like that meant that everything they did in time travel meant nothing, but everything that it would have effect. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Ultimately, it meant that the world that these characters inhabit is the world that they inhabit. There's nothing they can do to change that world via time travel. It was essentially
time travel only works in going in the past.
Yeah.
In Marvel, yeah.
But then this show, and spoiler to its ending, ultimately doesn't even create the multiverse. It just unleashes the multiverse on the rest of the world, and that's where I'm like, if they don't play this right, everything they do going forward is not going to matter.
That's their goal, though. Just have
fun.
Because, like, ultimately, here's what's going through my head is that say they make a Marvel movie and
wait. Let me because I wanted to pose my theory on the stones,
and
then also kind of talk about like the whole multiverse thing too. So in terms of how I see it, EVA said that they have a bunch of stones, and the stones only work in the particular dimensions, right?
Which is a thing that holds true from the comics as well.
Right. So in my mind, I looked at that as so the reason why the Avengers were able to grab their stones is because they worked within their own timeline, in their own dimension.
Oh, I literally just got what you're talking about right now, and that is a major problem with their time travel bullshit between these shows.
Right.
That's frustrating.
So in the Avengers, they went back in their own timeline, in their own dimension, and grabbed those stones from the past. And then that's why Steve had to go and return those stones back to the particular
Where they
past
were.
to enact the exact same future that everyone
The problem with that is that they interfered in all of those realities in some way, some
And
form.
there were branches. The one branch being Loki escaping.
Like the Loki escaping is a branch.
Yeah. The Loki escaping is a branch, but it's a branch that disrupted the sacred timeline, and that's why they grabbed them, because that wasn't supposed to happen. But that happened because they went in the past. But by
so the issue with that is that we saw the beginning of Guardians 1 where Star-Lord does his dance, gets the stone, and walks out. What you're saying, Meow, is that at some point during that walk, he got knocked out by War Machine, woke up, and then went back to do that dance like nothing happened, and Thanos is gone.
Yes. I mean that specific. I honestly don't know. But like in my mind, like I am trying to piece it together, because in that way it makes sense. Where and if TVA is essentially like the fourth dimension is higher than the third dimension, like our reality. So they are able to grab the different stone, or they work at a different power level. So the stones don't have any power in their realm, because
I think that works. That conjecture makes sense. That it's not that the stones don't work in other dimensions. It's that the TVA is outside of all dimensionality, so that they won't have any effect here.
But what got me was at the end, where when Loki went back, he went back to a different TVA.
Okay.
Is that the same TVA, but because it's multiverse now, it's
like our TVA is running adjacent to these timelines.
And this is my fucking problem with multiverse and time travel shit. Everything is inconsequential. The simplest answer, in which I thought when I watched it, is that the branching of reality has affected all realities. So that when he went back into that old world, it's a world now where another person is running the TVA. It's the same TVA that we all know and love. There is no other TVA running around, because then that creates another big can of worms so there's multiple factions across realities, all policing realities.
You know what? Okay, so what you just said kind of made sense to me. I wonder if it's a thing where when Sylvie pushed Loki. Okay, so when Sylvie and Loki left the void, went to the castle outside of time is still happening.
Yes.
Like things are still happening, and I wonder if when they were talking to Kang and Kang was like, "Oh, we reached the threshold," at that point things started to blend and mesh and so on and so forth. So when Loki went by the time Loki got back to the TVA, things had meshed so badly that he is in the same place, but with
realities are folding in on itself.
Different dimensions.
On top of
yeah.
I have two thoughts on that. One is that we're talking about Kang the Conqueror, spoilers, through the end of the show and its big reveal. And a big thing about his character is be able to move backwards and forwards in time. And there's an easy explanation of that. Kang walked into the background of the TVA's existence and just moved forward with it. And that's what created a new reality. And the second is, this is the conversation I had privately with Marcus, in that this is how they get the X-Men into the Marvel Universe without fucking things up.
Yeah.
Literally in this scene, Loki walked into our reality and it changed. And because he was outside of it, he was the only person who recognized it changed. So literally now they can go into Marvel movies going forward and just say mutants are a thing, thing.
X-Men already been there.
Yeah. I mean, didn't they? Isn't there a rumor that the guy that arm was broken in Black Widow is going to be the first mutant or something? Yeah.
No, that's just a dude who like got like a tongue-in-cheek callback to an actual Marvel character, being like, "No, I am the Marvel character Ursula Major."
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's
No, I know Ursa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe the character, or either he's listed in the credits or some bullshit. His name is Ursa, which is, and everyone's like, oh, like Ursa Major, like the talking Russian bear. That's cool. And then that guy's like, oh yes, I'm going to play on this. I am Ursa Major.
Yeah. Get that Marvel money, dog. Everybody's like, I mean, even the chick that played Taskmaster's like, I'm open to coming back. Like, yeah, you're open for another paycheck. Fuck yeah, bro.
Well, Olga Kulenko's a good enough actress, and they did. I think there's enough that you can do with Taskmaster that she could show up later, and I wouldn't be mad. But this guy, no. If they
everybody wants a little bit of that Disney coin, Disney credit card.
Yeah, that's what's all that guy's arm broke by.
Ursa Major getting recast like big time, and no one's gonna notice it.
Yeah, they make money off the cons. Like I was in Black Widow for 2 minutes. Let me sign a child. Sign my baby, please.
All right, so let us talk about the moments of this show. So I guess in a way, we'll just do young Sylvie. So Avery, you mentioned that was a big moment for you.
That was like I said, I enjoyed young Sylvie happened at the beginning of episode 4. Am I correct? Let me check. Okay, yeah. So it was just after fucking one of the worst episodes of the show I watched, and I'm like, this immediately brought this back to, oh, this is the show I'm watching. Thank God. And this was the episode. It was like, oh, this is the multiverse. This is not time travel. The minute I saw young Sylvie, because like if this was time travel, that doesn't like
that doesn't
make any sense.
Yeah,
Loki, if this is time travel, this is a sacred timeline. Loki will always be a young boy.
Yeah,
you always be that. So the only way that there could be this branch is if it's a completely different multiversal reality, and that's why they're pruning things so it doesn't differ. But then you get into the dumb argument of, cool, the minute Loki was born a girl, they should have pruned it there instead of waiting till she's like 9 and like living her best life, probably not going to grow up and be the evil villainous Loki, and then prune her for no godforsaken reason. But I generally love that moment because it really sets the tone for why the character Sylvie is the way she is. Because unlike our Loki, who we don't necessarily see a lot of his childhood, we're more told about his childhood. She seemed to have no problems. This doesn't seem like a little girl. Like the only way they could have made this scene better is if they had cast a young Thor at that time and truly shown the differences between those two realities to a certain extent. But they didn't, because I think they wanted to really keep on the mystique of how this whole show works. But I think it's like a really strong moment for that Sylvie character.
Right. Okay. Jordan, well, it's one of the moments for you.
Out of these 6 we have in front of us?
It could be one of these, or it could be whatever come to mind for you.
I mean, Kang's introduction was pretty dope. You know, the good old-fashioned R&B cover, entrance, and killed it out. Completely insane.
Oh my god!
That's one thing Marvel loves, is a little bit of derangement in their evil characters. And
I'm gonna need to stop. Sorry.
No. Not like it's hard to find a Marvel character without type of mental deficiency. You know, without them like sounding crazy. Like they kind of, only a few were there. They're able to articulate their goals. Like Eric Killmonger, Thanos. Like there are some that are able to do that. But then there's some that are like just like he has no one to talk to except himself. And we're seeing that, and he's unloading on Loki and the audience. But Jonathan Majors is a good actor. I tell you that much.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. I absolutely loved this scene to the point where Shireen was like, because I was eating the whole thing up. Like Shireen was just like, why do you always like the crazy villain? I was like, I don't know, they just speak to me. Yo, his scene, like as strong as Thanos came in when he came in, I feel like for me this worked a lot better. Because although I will say that we're seeing good Kang versus like the Conqueror Kang. We'll see that probably in season 2, whatever. But like just to know, go ahead. Well, I know.
Yeah.
But like, just for us to know like who this guy is and what of his incarnations will be, it was really cool to have him have such like a swag to him where he's just
He
like,
has a different vibe as a
yes,
character that I think
yes.
is an interesting choice.
The one thing that bothered me the most is the fact that he's dead. So like that was basically his moment to really eat it up and really like play up this character before he goes the probably like stoic villain type that doesn't really talk much and just all about conquering. Although I don't know much about King Conqueror.
Okay, so
Hopefully,
I will
hopefully they gave him a personality.
to answer. He without talking comics. To answer your question, we know as MCU fans that Kang the Conqueror is slated to appear in Ant-Man.
Yes.
That's why, in my conversations with Jordan behind the scenes of our podcast, I was like, that was a rumor. That's the thing. They cast it. Ant-Man hadn't even started filming, but they'd already cast him.
Yeah.
Loki was filming. I'm like, if this is really multiversal time travel bullshit, Kang is a perfect example of a character to pull out. And so when they opened that fucking thing and it was Jonathan Majors sitting there, I'm like, holy shit, I was right. Let's fucking go. I know exactly where this is going.
Yep. Yeah, I share the same sentiment with you, Jordan. Like that was such a great scene at the end of the show. Like it got me hyped. I'm just like, we got about like 15 minutes left of this show, and I have to wait like months to see where any of this goes. In terms for me, I'm gonna say I actually really enjoyed the Loki's time on Lamentus and how it ended with them like trying to get to the ship and it's just chaos to get there and they don't get there, but because they don't get there, they actually are alive. They don't die because the ship blows up. And it's really interesting because the entire time I was trying to guess like, all right, well how are they going to get back to TVA? How are they going to actually make it? Like this doesn't look like a winning strategy for them at all. But like even how it worked out, it was like, okay, that's really cool. Like the two Lokis falling in love is a Nexus event, and that is what clues the TVA and like, oh, that's where they are. Let's go grab them because they also have a thing. They also need them for their own purposes. So like that for me, that was really cool. And I just loved the scene where they approach the house and the two Lokis are talking like, okay, well, how are we gonna do this? And then Sylvie was like, nah, I'm just gonna barge in, and then the woman shoots her and she flies out, and then Loki's like, all right, no, I'm gonna try, and he gets shot through, and it's just like I absolutely love the comedy in this show, and I feel like moments like that really just, although I do laugh at everything, like I had a genuine laugh at that whole scene. Yeah. Any other moments? Any other moments? 'Cause I got a
Loki's fighting. I could
Yes.
only imagine if I had 8 of myself, how tired I would immediately become. It's just like outside looking in and seeing the consistency and personality conflict. I mean, it was pretty funny, and Tom Hiddleston's the only actor that can kind of do like articulate cringe, like in terms of like facial expressions. He was just so disappointed in himself, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, this has been you for the past 10 years. Sorry you had to see it like this, but
Oh man.
you're inevitable." And it kind of harkens back to what Thor told Loki in the elevator in Ragnarok. It's like, yeah, like there's no stopping your bullshit. I'm sorry, I love you, but I can't change you. You can't even change yourself. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like that. Yeah, that scene. I found that hilarious, but it also kind of showed like out of the Lokis, there's clearly a power scale where classic Loki is like, I'm just gonna put this clone. I'm gonna put the clone so convincing that other Lokis are going to fight this clone versus fighting me, and then we're gonna escape. And it's just like
It's
what?
that's a plot point that's brought up from I want to say the second episode where they were talking about Loki making illusions. And he stopped in the moment and explained there's a
Yeah.
difference between me creating an illusion and me creating a construct. They're two different
Yeah.
things. And this is an
Right.
example of him creating a construct. That was
Yeah.
That's a
That was really cool. Yeah. Yeah. For me, like on top of that, I really like the supermarket fight scene, whatever, where we actually get to see Sylvie and her actually like wreck stuff. Caveat to this though is that it ends with like the reason why they're there is because she has she's been collecting the prune bombs or whatever, and she has them all set up to go in different timelines, and we don't really get to see exactly what happens with that other than the fact that it's supposed to be a distraction for her to get to the TVA and do whatever she's going to do. But for me, I was really hoping to see at least like maybe like a montage of the bombs just going off, and like maybe the TVA soldiers are trying to get to them before the bombs go off, and they go ah, or at least something. But I didn't get anything. But I did get awesome fights, and I enjoyed them, and it was really interesting to see, like, to track Sylvie going through character to character. But yeah, I love that entire thing.
I'm just waiting for Justin Hammer to come back because we saw Rock Smart or whatever, the Roxxon industry. Justin Hammer, Sam Rockwell, come on.
Wait,
from Iron Man 2?
As of the In the Name of the King one shot that they did, I think one of the last one shots they did, he's in prison with his gay lover.
Wait, okay, who is this character?
Justin Hammer, the villain,
anti-Iron Man.
The villain from Iron Man 2.
Man, I do not.
I know, right? It's legit a long time ago. You're not.
It's over 10 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Bring him back.
Yeah.
Just have him partying through like the supermarket with the hurricane coming through, dancing. Cowards.
Okay, so actually, I actually don't have it on this list, but and this is just because I don't really follow the comics, like, and the MCU is pretty much the my introduction to like comics, and the whole Alioth thing. I was kind of like, what is this giant smoke monster? This is really just a giant smoke monster that's like people running from. Like, it was one of those things
Aladdin.
Exactly, yeah. Like I was so taken aback by just this is very like Marvel Comics. Like
I will say
all
it's
the MCU
not
stuff.
Their interpretation of Alioth, because Alioth isn't even a big character that like people know.
Right,
it's one of those things you have to do deep dives on. And their interpretation of Alioth is literally to create the smoke monster. That's it. Like he's not a giant smoke. Like from what I can tell from my own research, when I looked up Alioth, he seems to be just like another Kang the Conqueror-esque character running through time and space doing shit. They just kind of took that name and put this on a generic smoke monster they needed.
Okay then. They fooled me. Because I looked at it, I was like, I guess this is a comic thing. That's cool. And then I kind of like briefly looked it up and was like, all right, cool. Yeah, like that whole thing was weird. It was weird, but it was also cool because it was just like, this is how they explain. This is what we do with the prune timelines. We throw him here, and he just kind of does his garbage.
Specifically, and I think it clarified the sort of end of time void. Kind of clarifies something with how pruning works, because pruning doesn't necessarily destroy an entire timeline. It merely destroys what was altered that would create the deviation. And I'm guessing time heals itself and everything goes back to normal. So
people forget.
Yeah. So it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. With that, is there any other? If there's any other moments, they were all great. Whatever, let's talk about some of the characters. We talked a lot about Loki. We talked a lot about Sylvie. Let's talk about Mobius.
I think I love Owen Wilson. I'm a big fan. Like, I genuinely think he's a great actor, and nothing surprised me the most to see him in this show and to see him just like living it. This isn't like a here's another. It's not like here's a big actor putting him in this product and he's kind of stoically. This is not an actor being cast in a DC movie and just kind of have to deal with the fact he's in it. This is not Ben Affleck in Justice League. This is Owen Wilson giving this role and being like, okay, I'm gonna play this character. I'm gonna play him exactly how he works in this show, and he is my favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
Just this character who like genuinely believes in what he's doing, is genuinely affable, like good nature. Like you can tell like that he's the only good person in the TVA. There's even that one scene where like he meets that small child and he's like, he knows that this small child is going to die by this, and he just has that moment with that child. I'm like, okay, so this is a character with a moral center, and it really helps to anchor our Loki and help him get to that moral place, because he finds this character who essentially knows that he's evil, but is believing in him in every shot and giving him a chance.
Right.
Mobius is great. It's so
like Mobius knows Loki's history, and even with that, he's trusting of Loki and believes that Loki will do the right thing. So real quick, now think about it. The timeline where that kid gets pruned and we see the devil figure on the stained glass.
Stained glass.
So
that's just the thing. That's just the thing.
Okay.
Like, there's nothing special about that.
Okay. I'm like, is that timeline getting pruned because of the kill and because of the stained glass, or that's just stained glass? Like that's just the thing in the back. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah, no, Mobius, I mean, Owen Wilson had a tremendous amount of chemistry with Tom Hiddleston. Like that was expressed in the behind the scenes featurettes they would do from time to time. And like you don't want to kind of like adjacent to what Avery said, just give actor a role and expect them to enjoy it. I think Marvel has done a good job in allowing actors some investment into what characters they're playing. Yeah. And it's clear that Owen Wilson's like, yeah, I can do this. Like this isn't too.
It's not very far from his wheelhouse. It's like, but it's just interesting. It's just different and interesting enough that it gives him something to play with.
Oh yeah. Like the back and forth. Like I was watching. That's gonna go down a rabbit hole. Never mind. Screw that. But yeah, the back and forth between Loki and Mobius is so.
You were watching Zoolander. That's what you were watching. That's reminding you of this moment. Zoolander 2, actually, the strongest one.
I love Zoolander. I have not touched Zoolander 2 with 10-foot pole.
Oh, you need to. You need to.
It's terrible.
It will ruin your Saturday. But yeah, like Mobius and Loki, I think right now, like I think Tim from Kind of Funny said it, like they were the buddy cop that he didn't get from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Although I disagree with that, because I did see that buddy cop between Falcon and Winter Soldier. I just like Mobius and Loki more together.
I think what he's referring to is at a certain point they stopped doing the buddy, like after episode 2 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, they sort of stopped doing the buddy cop situation to deal with the actual plot. While throughout Loki, it's literally Owen Wilson's character teaming up with another Loki character and just having it back and forth. Like him sitting down with classic Loki and talking about, are you guys sure that that alligator is a Loki? Because I mean, he could be lying, but even if he was lying, that's so Loki, and I respect that. And I'm like, that is an amazing sequence.
And insert the subtitles saying "confused gator noises." Confused gator noises.
Oh yeah. I really like him as a character, and it was reassuring. Although some people are just like, oh my god, no one really dies in MCU, but it was reassuring to see after he got pruned that he was in the void and like he survived, because it was one of the things where just like, how they gonna do my man like that? Like that's so. Come on, please let him survive, and he survived. So I was like, okay, good. Although I will say that it's gonna be interesting to see where him and Loki, how that relationship works in this.
This is essentially timeline. A brand new Owen Wilson that he's dealing with right now.
Yeah.
They don't have that relationship. In fact, this appears to be an Owen Wilson who doesn't have the extensive history with Loki, because Loki walks up to him and is like, "Oh, you must be an analyst here."
Yeah, right. So yeah, we'll see there. Let's okay. So let's talk about
Ravonna or Renslayer.
Renslayer, yeah. I always call her Renslayer, and then like seeing her name, I'm just like, the A and the O are not switched. I'm going to say Ravonna. I'm going to say that, and I don't always say it. But yeah, this is another character I absolutely loved. I'm just gonna say it was great to see a black woman in charge, although she was in charge of something that was not great. Doesn't matter.
Hey, out of all of them, she's the most committed to the cause. She's like, nope, this is my life. You are obstructing my livability, and I ain't gonna have to kill my best friends.
Is
Get back in line.
Yeah, she is my most disappointing character in the show for me.
Really?
Yeah, like at a certain I couldn't tell where her character's like goals and aspirations were at any point in the narrative. Like at first it seemed like okay, she's on board with everything, she's fine. Then it's like, oh, by episode 3 to 4, I'm like, oh, she knows more than what she's letting on. And in episode 5, it's like, no, she doesn't. She just as confused as everyone else. I'm like, okay, that's a weird, interesting choice to make. And then by episode 6, she's like, I'm going to betray everything. It's like, okay, this is weird and inconsistent.
Just to comment on that, I think it is. She's basically like TVA for her is her religion, right? Mm-hmm. Because like that's how I took it. Because in the conversation with Mobius and Loki, when Loki's like questioning Mobius, like, how are you just gonna follow this without like you never seen the timekeepers? Like, isn't that weird to you? And like Mobius shoots back by saying like it's we believe that we're doing the right thing, and like you don't need to necessarily see proof all the time. And I think it's that exact thing. And I feel like Renslayer kind of taught that onto Mobius, like when she pulled him into this. And I think like, I'm not sure if she's definitely not the first variant, but like I think she's probably one of the like.
She's not, because we show we in the Philly backstory we saw see her as a foot soldier, and to my inconsistency, like she knows that everyone is a variant. So she has an idea of everything going around it, because she like when they bring back
as a foot soldier.
Yeah. No, not as a variant.
No. Like when she's like higher up.
No. Yes, when she's higher up, because she knows that everyone is a variant who works at the TVA, because she makes a considered effort to keep that information from everyone else. When it's that when that one foot soldier gets brought back in and they kill her off screen, so she knows all that information. So like, and then she also has quote unquote had meetings with the timekeeper. So in my head, she's like, oh, she's in on this more than what the situation. Then it becomes like, oh no, I don't know anything, and I'm like, this is a weird, inconsistent choice.
That's funny that you say it. So I think it was one of those things. Again, I think I don't think necessarily she knew that everyone was with a variant. I think when it came to the whatever her name is, whatever that hunter's name was, when it came to
from
her,
what's it called? Because that sequence was just out of Black Mirror.
Oh,
yeah. It's not, the actress isn't from Black Mirror, but the scene itself of them sipping pina coladas in a resort felt like that Black Mirror episode.
Oh, the one where they're rating everybody.
The one they're in paradise, where they're in that fake heaven.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. But yeah. With whatever that hunter or whatever, it to me, when she said that we're all variants or whatever, I think Renslayer thought, oh, that's like she didn't. Of course, she didn't know that. Or okay. In my mind, I think she didn't know that. But if that was something that a top soldier would start saying to the masses, that would just disrupt the whole system that she has in place, and that will probably most likely disturb keeping the sacred timeline like together.
I would agree with that interpretation if she didn't just immediately kill her off screen. That read to me like, oh, she's saying something that I know that I don't want out, not something that I don't want anybody finding out. Because she makes a considered effort to just like, I killed her off screen, don't worry about it. Here's a lie about what happened to her. Her mind deteriorated, don't worry about her.
Well, I mean, I think if that's the case, then it's weird that when Miss Minutes give her the whatever information, she's like, oh, I'm going to go find my own free will. Because it's just like, that you're all variant.
That's my issue with the character.
Okay, yeah. I feel like, to me, it just makes sense if she doesn't know, and then it kind of works as like, yeah, she's been lied to this entire time. Her faith isn't real, and now she's gonna go find her own thing.
Like, and to that point, like her faith wasn't real up until the point that someone confronted her and is like, all right, no, I'm leaving now. Because that's what that scene feels like.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Um,
But like I said, I agree with how strong she is an interesting character up until halfway through the narrative. I'm like, this is a very interesting role to have given this woman, and I'm really enjoying it.
yeah. Like I can't wait to see more of her in season 2, and I wonder how, because she's not immune to the effects of the multiverse. So wherever she's going, well, I guess she's there now. But like
Theoretically,
she's gonna
she wasn't in. If my understanding of this, what happened is that because reality has changed in that place, all that shit has happened. She was outside of it when it happened. So theoretically, she's going to retain all information about everything that's going to happen. And in fact, the TVA is going to mold around her existence. So it's going to be like she was never there.
Oh, because time healed stuff.
Yeah, so because B-15 and is reporting to Mobius like he's in charge.
Right. If that is the same TVA.
If that's the same TVA.
A different TVA where the rules are what? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Miss Minutes.
I love Miss Minutes.
Yeah.
I love Miss Minutes, and I love Tara Strong, and this is one of her better voice performances. Even though she's never had a bad voice performance, like she kind of ate up this character, and it's just it wasn't all exposition. Like she actually added to the story and helped bring some tension to what she wouldn't talk about or what she wouldn't say, because it became pretty evident that okay, this isn't just an operating system, and especially at the end of it, to which it's like I don't know if she was giving the Loki's options under the direction of Kang, or was she just acting upon herself? Like she might be a sentry for a different entity that we've yet to see. But Tara Strong, I love her. I love her character. I love her as an actor.
Yeah. You gonna say something, Avery?
No, I think she was 100% operating under Kang's will and influence. I think he was just because he knows, like he ultimately knows everything that's going to happen and will happen. So it's one of those things where he's been manipulating things from behind the scenes. So that was just another bit of manipulation, like immediately presenting these people who've worked to this place with a thing that was going to spur them forward.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it makes the most sense that Miss Minutes was working for Kang. I guess Miss Minutes was the was the middleman of Kang and TVA, because he's not actually there. He's just kind of making sure things are going. And even like no, there's no scene where Miss Minutes is in the chambers of the timekeepers.
No.
Right. No, she's not there. Yeah. But like, yeah, like that's how I took it, at least. Yeah. I love Miss Minutes as a character. It was one of those things where it was kind of weird to see her first appear. She appeared on the screen. No, she appeared when she gave us the history of the TVA and the multiverse war or whatever. And then when we see her again,
she's the operating system of that computer.
Yeah, and then she jumps out of the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, when she jumped out of the computer, I was like, no, something's not right here. Because based off the technology around this setting, y'all don't have cameras to do that. So like at that point, I was like, something's up with Miss Minutes. Like I don't believe that.
They can travel through time on magic boxes. And
but they got pointy sticks with yellow lights on it. Like they
yeah, well, I mean, like people from reality.
I mean, the overall aesthetic of the TVA. I think that the aesthetic of the TVA was a great choice, like that 1970s, 1960s vibe, which is now becoming more and more common in sci-fi in terms of like expressing this is a government agency. It is going to be boring. It's going to be gray, yellow, and sometimes brown as an accent.
Yeah. So the TVA was one step away from being the Federal Bureau of Control.
Yeah.
We get a lot of just need a little bit more concrete walls.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Welcome to the TVA.
Yeah, when it's I wonder Men in Black. That's what I was thinking of. Men in Black
Oh
has
yeah, they
the
also did that too.
same kind of aesthetic, right? But it's just
Yeah, but theirs is more futuristic because it's more futuristic to give us more alien aesthetic. But I get what you're saying. Yeah.
right. Yeah. All right. Y'all want to talk more about Kang? We kind of covered him, right?
We touched
We
on it, but we
covered
haven't
Kang.
actually talked about Kang and what that means.
Let's,
And specifically,
well, before we do that, let's talk about Hunter B-15 real quick, and
yes,
then
okay.
again, yeah. So, she was an interesting character because for me, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, cool, strong black woman as the like head of the, I guess, timekeeper police, awesome. And then as she got
Timekeeper
more,
cops.
as she got more screen time, I was like, I'm guessing she's going to be an important character because she's kind of like in every other scene when they're in TVA.
Like, she's a character that exists so that the faces, the grunt of the TVA, have an actual face or character.
Mm.
And I think she is recognizing what her narrative role is. I think she does a great job with it, and I'm excited to see what they do with that character. But she didn't blow my skirt up in any way, shape, or form in terms of like me watching her on screen. And I think she suffered in that episode 3 or something. Yeah, around episode 3 was where I was like, okay, this character's a little bit weird. Where it was like she starts off super confrontational about everything, and it's around episode 3 when she starts making her questioning choices. I'm like, I think this could have been a bit more smoother for that character.
Well, that happened after the Loki thing. After
Yeah.
Loki infected her mind. I mean, to me that made sense because she didn't at that point she didn't have any of her memories, but Loki's enchantment like triggered some of those those
It
memories.
it didn't.
What do you mean?
Because I think the difference between what she did to A12 or something and B15, she took over B15 and was like controlling her. Well, A15, she was manipulating her mind and enchanting it. Because there's a scene later on where B15 asked her to do what you did to A15 to me, which implies that it didn't really happen. She was just more curious of what happened to A15.
So in my mind, I think because Loki's they have a conversation and our Loki asks Sylvie, how does your enchantment work? And then Sylvie told him, I basically find a memory in your head and I fix to that memory and I use that memory to basically control you. And I think that's what happened to her where Sylvie attached to a memory that was before B15's time at the TVA, and that's what made her start thinking like, wait, what was that thing? Like I don't remember that.
I have to re-watch episode 3 and 4 to confirm. I think we're both coming at it from 2 separate angles.
Yeah.
Because in my head, what happened was she was super confrontational, and then confronting, because she was one of the first people who found A12, and A12 was screaming about being a variant. But it's that moment where I'm like, it doesn't connect for me that she would immediately make that jump about what A12 is it's screaming. It's like I'd have to rewatch it, but I see what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So with that being, Jordan, you got anything? B15?
No, B15.
B5?
She was a solid character. She was her character served well in reinforcing any type of hardened, like when it became more and more clear that the TVA was not to be trusted. The way they situated her as this almost Ravana style character, as in like she was very much so drinking the Kool-Aid of TVA,
right?
Slowly chipping away, and wait for the big reveal. So and her character, and then leading to basically a reformist or revolutionary within the organization. She was not afraid of attacking her fellow soldiers,
which we didn't really see, which I'm a little upset about.
And it was also weird that Renslayer put her in the weird wall prison. Like that was a weird. Like, is this a space where only Renslayer knows about?
The TVA, none of the TVA's rules make any sense. Like everyone's a variant. They literally all they have to do is they put everyone in front of a court and they're gonna prune you anyway. So like, what's
Well, didn't
That's
Hunter
all.
Beaverteen breach the chambers of the
yeah?
the tribunal? So yeah, she wasn't afraid of
Yeah,
fighting her colleague.
yeah, that was after the Lokis were in and they were causing some ruckus. But
Mhm.
yeah. Okay,
Fight the power.
let's talk about Kang. You can
Okay.
yeah, go
First
ahead.
off, first off, they introduced this character as He Who Remains, who is a actual separate Marvel character, which is just a old, wizened looking white dude. So the minute Jonathan Majors shows up and introduces himself as He Who Remains, I'm like, okay, this is based on everything that this character acts and does. He's clearly not Kang to me. He's a variant, or Kang has a really interesting timeline as a character, in that this is a mini primer of the Kang the Conqueror character for anyone who doesn't read comics. In our near future, a young boy named Nathaniel Richards, who may or may not be descended from Doctor Doom or Reed Richards, gets time travel technology. He travels to the past under the identity of the it's this weird Crimson something character. He eventually becomes a pharaoh in ancient Egypt named Ramatut, who's like an old Fantastic Four villain. And then eventually he becomes Kang the Conqueror. But then eventually he stops being Kang the Conqueror and becomes a character named Immortus. And the interesting thing about Kang is all these characters exist at the same time. So frequently, Kang stories will involve Immortus coming from the future and saying, "Hey guys, I'm fucking up right now. I'm gonna need y'all to stop me." And then, meanwhile, the Nathaniel Richards character, because of Kang's influence, also ends up being pulled out of the timeline as a separate character named Iron Lad with the whole thing. So there's a young version of Kang who's like, I don't want to grow up to be Kang the Conqueror, and there's an old version of Kang being like, Kang the Conqueror sucks. I'm trying to be a good guy. It's the whole thing.
That's wild.
Yeah, so this character clearly doesn't read as Kang to me. He reads as Immortus, a version of Kang who is technically not a good guy, but is not a villain. That's the most interesting thing about this ending and what this Kang represents is like, despite all the shit he's doing, in the ends justify the means of everything he's doing. Clearly, what he was doing was the right thing, and choices both the Sylvie and Loki characters make truly define good and evil in regards to the future of the Marvel Universe.
He is chaotic,
them
neutral,
breaking
and I
the
love
time,
him for that.
like them breaking the timeline can be interpreted as a bad thing.
Yes, because he pretty much says like, "Hey guys, everything I'm doing is I'll be frank. Morality doesn't mean shit to me. I'm an eons old guy who knows all time and space, whatever. And
He's
I think
chaotic, neutral.
Morality is a construct based on a lot of things, but whatever. So I get where this character's coming from. But he pretty much tells them, hey, if you do this, I will be replaced by a version of me who is worse.
Yep.
But them pruning realities, and this is articulating the choices here. Them pruning realities is a quote unquote necessary evil to prevent the worst outcome.
Yes.
In his eyes, yes.
Yes. And then our Loki recognizes that as, that's a thing. And our Sylvie, she's so caught up in her own vengeance that she just ignores everything and just kills him outright. And the time breaks. Like there's no looking at the outcome of this and not being like, yeah, Sylvie made the bad choice. She did the Star-Lord of this story.
Oh my god, that guy, boy!
Don't get emotional in a Marvel film. You might.
Yeah. But even like in this whole like scene or whatever, when he's talking to them and he stops, he's like, "You've reached a threshold." Like that scene, I felt like he did that so well. It was just like he picked up the apple and dropped, and he was like, "Oh."
I know, yeah, I've never seen this before.
Cool, yeah, right. It was like what
gravity predicted,
right?
Gravity, what?
Hey, he was like, okay, I might have lied. Up until this point, I don't know what's gonna happen, so I'm just gonna sit here and watch.
And I think there was a case for them to call his bluff. Like, whatever, man. Like, you're bullshitting us. You're telling me you've been here for eons and eons. Like, we didn't even know you before. But
well, big part of his character is like, hey man, I manipulated everything to get you two here. Like, back to that whole Sylvie thing, like how random it was that they just sort of picked her up and brought her here. If everything he says is true, they only did that because he knew that she would break free and become this figure and grow up and do this and come to him at this point.
Yep.
The only thing he didn't know was whether she would take vengeance or follow what he thought was right.
Right.
I love everything about. Like, here's the thing. I'm glad that this character dies at the end of this, because I'm not sure I could deal with this interpretation of Kang the Conqueror going forward.
Oh yeah, well, like the jokey,
slightly unhinged, jokey, like clearly not in the same genre as the characters around him. Like, I enjoyed it in this scene. It makes essentially a giant exposition dump just fly and be this interesting conversation where he's not even talking to the two characters. He's talking to us as the audience. Like, hey man, this is everything I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. But if I had, and that's my big fear, because this character is going to be in Ant-Man, and like in my head, he's going to keep this jovial nature in that movie. And I'm like, I don't want this. I need Kang the Conqueror to be a stern, regal villain with gravitas, like real cojones, like the way Thanos is the way I want Kang.
I feel like we're gonna get that, and I think the reason why we got this version of Kang is so we have something to remember. Like, oh, this guy is capable of, having this kind of personality, but we're getting this very, like, as I was saying earlier, like this stoic bad guy that's like yeah, all I want to do is conquer. Like, I don't really care about who you are. Like, you're nothing to me, kind of thing. Like, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get that in season 2 of Loki. My question though is, when is Ant-Man and was it Quantumania? When is that supposed to?
It's.
That
I know they started filming now, so I think it's next year.
Okay. So I wonder if we're gonna get that before season 2 of Loki. I feel like it might make sense for us to get,
because
okay.
Because Marvel right now is in. Let me bring it up because I think I had this conversation with someone else. The current, we know in advance like 10 MCU shows. They could easily slot something in for the Loki season 2, but that requires them pushing other things back. And because all these shows are now so intimately tied into each other, it's one of those things where we might get another Falcon and Winter Soldier, Black Widow situation where they have to start playing 3D chess to get this season in, when in reality they can ultimately just do everything as they go in and just put the show in the background. Because odds are the events of this show are going to spill into Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and so we're going to see the ramification of this there.
Oh yeah.
Well, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania comes out February 17th, 2023. So spring 2023 for the most part.
Okay.
So it'll be a little bit of time.
We got a whole year in between, huh? Okay. Yeah, so I guess we talked about the group of Lokis. You guys ain't got anything else to say about them, or we wanna
I
know. I said my piece.
I wish they'd done more of Kid Loki. I think that character just existed to be just Kid Loki, and he didn't really do much of him because they were focused on classic Loki. Because that's a character that, like, of the characters that they introduced, that is the most important one based on if they're doing Young Avengers. And I don't think they
Kid Loki
gave it
classic. Kid Loki.
Kid Loki.
Oh yeah, okay.
And they didn't do enough for that to be like, we're going to see this version going forward.
Yeah. In terms of that whole thing, I think for me, classic Loki was the standout Loki because he pretty much had the whole like I pretty much did everything, and I thought like, okay, well, I need to get away from this because
it's literally our Loki, except at the end of the beginning of Infinity War, he faked his death.
Yeah,
that's the only difference.
The floating,
he did what everyone thought was going to happen in that movie, and he just faked his death and ran away.
Yeah. So I mean that the other Lokis, I really wish there was more to them. Like, it was one thing. It was one of the things where it's like, okay, so we get like 3 different Lokis, and I think when I asked the question, well, is these the only Lokis that survived? We were presented with the rest of the Lokis, and it's like, okay, cool, now we know where they are. Although it was weird because I was waiting for, because at the beginning of the series we see Mobius, or maybe it's B-15. They're scrolling through the different Lokis.
Yeah, they're demonstrating to Loki a bunch of weird variants of Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like I was hoping to see at least a couple of those Lokis in this batch of Lokis, but I don't think there was any. Like, because I was especially waiting for like the yellowish, like muscly Loki.
I think it was more of a frost giant kind of aesthetic that they were going for. And I think it was just the effects that they were working on that gave it that weird
yellow
gene.
look.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so that was something. But other than that, it was like, okay, this is a cool scene. And then it's like, I guess it's that scene's there just to, be like an Easter egg for the people looking for Easter eggs. But yeah, okay. And we don't need to sit and like point at the Easter eggs. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie or in this TV show. Like there was a lot.
Frog Thor, get him in there.
Frog Thor. Yeah.
Being voiced by, even though you really can't hear it, being voiced by Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. But yeah, there was, as I said at the beginning, there was the Thanos copter. There was the helmet from one of the bad guys from Ant-Man, just in the.
It was the Yellow Jacket's helmet.
There you go. Yeah. So, which that one was interesting because he got sucked into the quantum realm or something like that, right? Yeah. Yes. So that just.
He also got sucked into the quantum realm inside out.
God, Jesus.
Remember, his suit collapsed in on itself, and his body was like.
Oh God. Lord.
What if possibly one of the most visceral deaths in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I was like, that is fucked up. Just shoot him next time.
Right.
Shoot him in the face.
End his misery, please. Okay, so I think we can end this cast with the question: what does this mean for the rest of the MCU (parentheses MCM), which is
gonna get weird.
Marvel.
Gonna get weird quick. And with it being weird means more possibility and new characters that people weren't even thinking about. Like, I want to have Stiltsman. Bring him in. Acted by Mel Gibson.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how it be, though. That's how it be. Like the fucking, Sir something, Sir.
Let's not give the answer. Let's not give the anti-Semite a job right now. Like I know what you're talking about, Jordan, but like let's pick another venerable actor of his era. What's Danny Glover doing?
There's gonna be more of that going on. There's gonna be more of like just characters coming in that you wouldn't even think about. And Marvel is, or at least the leadership of Marvel is good at bringing forth new ideas that make sense. But this kind of just fucks everything. I mean, not to fucks everything up, but it cuts all of the drag from what phase 1, 2, and 3 was. So it's just kind of a big refresh.
What Jordan's alluding to is there is no limit to what they can do now with what the end of this show is going to be. In regards to the MCU going forward, we know Shang-Chi and Eternals are going to be two relatively grounded in the Marvel universe that we know. But we have.
Are they though? Because in my mind, I was, again, this is just me spitballing at like 2:00 in the morning, looking at my baby. Like, I wonder if it'd be a thing where Shang-Chi is actually in a different universe, where like the only thing that we have tied is the guy from Doctor Strange, because we see him fighting Abomination.
Wong and Abomination.
That gives you the bullshit that I don't want to see. That's dumb. You can fund him like
put on your brown pants, Avery.
That's so dumb. Just put him in the narrative. You want to ask the question, where was he during Infinity War? I don't know, living his normal life. Because at that point in his narrative, he's living his normal life.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine they save all the weird stuff for the What If series. Like, now the What If series can exist.
What If is going to be next level bonkers, absolutely no rules. It's whatever cool idea we can think of, we're going to get in What If. But everything else I think is going to be relatively grounded in what stories they want to tell. So yeah, I think Shang-Chi and Eternals are going to be relatively grounded, and especially in Eternals is going to set up more the cosmic Marvel universe as we know it.
See, my problem with the Eternals is I'm really big on power scales, and I feel like with what I've learned from Eternals, because up at this point, I never knew who the Eternals were until like I started looking at this stuff. But like,
Angelina Jolie and Paperboy.
like they're on a scale where
They're at Thor's level. They're at Thor's level.
they're Thor.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah, they're at Thor's level.
I thought they were higher than that.
I'm omniscient or whatever term
Thor
they use for.
is the strongest Avenger.
Yeah. Okay, I thought they were like, I thought they were higher than like Thor. Like I thought they were like.
There's some controversy in that because Marvel fucked up what the Eternals are in this film and changed things. Because Thanos is an Eternal in the comics,
right? Yeah.
So by that logic, you're like, oh, they're on Thanos' level, but in like reality, they're more like a Thor's level. And they've already given them their way. They have to deal with it. They've given the Eternals their out and being like, we don't involve ourselves in human affairs. That's why they weren't involved in everything going on. So we're moving on from there.
Well, like it's with the Eternals and this X-Men conversation because they fucked up the
Inhumans.
The Inhumans real bad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I just know that the Eternals are a part of the humanoid hierarchy that can exist, right?
Marvel constantly rewrites their own cosmology on a regular basis, so like there's not much I can really bring into this conversation, but to say that yes, at some point ancient aliens came by and came from the future, from the cosmos, came down to Earth and created 3 separate fucking superhero variants on Earth that we just had to deal with.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Yeah, Eternals and Shang-Chi, and then we've got the back-to-back of Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange into Multiverse of Madness. The rumor of Spider-Man is that it's fucking 3 Spider-Man. It better be. It's Into the Spider-Verse, but with Peter Parker. I'm of the mindset that this was super dumb. I don't like this at all. Wow. I think we should have let the past die, and we should actually create my big issue with the Tom Holland.
You spit on the soil that we are created from.
So. My big issue with the Tom Holland Spider-Man is that he's never got to sit down and just be Spider-Man. Like he's never got to fight crime in New York City, be the classic Spider-Man.
Like, but there is like that theory of Kevin Feige just made a whiteboard of what was done in the last 2 like quote unquote trilogies, and like, okay, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. We have to move as far away from New York as possible, so we can like have like an actual fresh story.
I agree with that though.
I agree with that, and they needed to do that because that was one of the most refreshing things about the current Spider-Man is like it doesn't have the baggage that the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man had when it began, where it just decided to do the exact same thing except worse. But I want to see this Peter Parker be the classic Spider-Man. He's never got that chance, and now we're immediately throwing him into the Spider-Verse only because Sony is so. I love PlayStation, but I'm gonna talk some shit. Sony is so inept in managing their fucking Spider-Man franchise that they did Into the Spider-Verse and immediately said, "All right, let's do it again."
Who's gonna stop us? But yeah,
this would be a great movie if this was the 4th Spider-Man movie. But this is the 3rd in the trilogy that ends with him teaming up with the quote-unquote other Spider-Man.
My thing is, I don't know if a normal Spider-Man movie would work right now because of everything that's surrounding that. Is just be like, oh, so we got this really small story of Spider-Man.
It wouldn't be impossible though. It would not be impossible.
I think it'd be a cool thing if like No Way Home starts out like that, where it's like a small Spider-Man movie, but then like something happens and he runs into.
But Spider-Man's being pursued. He's a fugitive.
Yeah, well, that's another issue. Like he's at the end of the last movie, it ended with him being wanted for murder because fucking Mysterio put out that thing about Spider-Man murdered me. Here's doctored footage of him killing me.
That didn't get cleared up.
No, that's my thing. That's why this should be a Spider-Man movie.
Well, No Way Home, right? Or Far From
Home.
Which one is it? No Way Home.
No. It's like we know Doctor Strange is going to be the Avenger in residence in this movie, filling in the role of Nick Fury and Tony Stark for the previous movies. Which I think I'm fine with, because in comics those two have an interesting relationship. This is fine with. I just don't want the multiverse bullshit. I think it sounds for me. This movie sounds like Sony is putting too many fingers into the MCU pot, because if this movie succeeds, they can finally bring
fingers.
They can finally bring Spider-Man into all their stupid movies that they're making in the background, like all the
Like Tom Holland.
like multiverse bullshit.
You know what? Yeah, that actually this is possibly. I think Sony executives are like, yes, it no longer matters. We can do it now. I mean, like in terms of like bringing in Venom and all that shit, they can.
I wouldn't be opposed. I wouldn't be opposed to Venom coming over to Marvel.
Venom is awful.
I love him.
The character in the movie was trash.
But yeah, like I think Sony has a weird green light now, saying, you know what, multiverse.
It's so dumb. But yeah, so Spider-Man No Way Home, and then Multiverse of Madness. We already knew going into it that Wanda Maximoff was going to be involved as a side character. At the same time, they had the director switch, so it's like fucking not even Scott Derrickson. It's actually Sam Raimi, which is actually pretty cool, because he's always wanted to do Doctor Strange.
Sam Raimi's great.
And there's a question: is this going to be dealing with the fact that Baron Mordo also left at the end of Doctor Strange 1? Like, I'm coming back as a villain.
Bring in Dr. Voodoo.
And then the other rumors, well, actually that's true. The other rumor is that Loki is going to show up in this movie as well, because Tom Holland has shown up in London, still his Loki haircut when Doctor Strange was filming, even though Loki had already finished.
Interesting.
So of the two, I'm more excited for Doctor Strange, because it's going to be Doctor Strange's job to define what the multiverse is going forward.
Yeah, at least
that's going to be his job.
At least
Spider-Man's going to fuck it up, and Doctor Strange is going to fix it.
Yeah, at least handle all the externalities, because Doctor Strange is pulling double duty nowadays. Like, fuck, none of the Avengers are here. I have to clean up everyone's shit.
If Captain Marvel isn't on Earth, I'm the strongest person on this planet right now. Mm-hmm. I got shit to deal with, guys.
We just need to hard cut to Doctor Strange selling his soul for all the power. So it's just an easy button every time he does that. It just doesn't matter. No one can fuck with him because he sold his soul. It's like, fuck it.
So before we end, I do want to say one thing about I part of me wonders, because I feel like Marvel just hasn't missed. And I think I'm hoping that wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, okay. My thing just got kind of weird.
You're thinking about how dumb Venom is. And your mind just blanked out, because like
it's a Sony movie. DJ, keep talking.
I'm not talking about Venom. I'm talking about What If. I'm hoping that certain things in What If, like maybe we see. I don't know if it could be like Kang or Loki or some like. We get something that connects them all together.
Yes.
Where
to that, continue.
No. I was that's basically what I was saying. Like, maybe
to that point, when What If was initially announced, I just thought it was going to be a bunch of what ifs, like just cool ancillary stories that we can tell and things. However, rewatching the recent trailer, there are shots in that trailer of various characters interacting.
Yeah. You're right.
Yes, so it's in my understanding that Multiverse of Madness ties, the event of Loki are going to tie into What If. It's why What If is specifically coming after Loki to justify multiverse, and there's going to be some sort of multiversal stuff going on. I wouldn't be surprised if a version of Kang shows up and he give you a proper introduction before he shows up in Ant-Man, so they don't have to do any of the work there.
I was under the impression that the What If series is basically an expression of the events of Loki, like just talking about the various timelines that have just birthed from that decision.
Right. I was wondering or hoping that it would be like we get to see Kang, like somehow it would be a thing where the different What If characters are coming together to deal with Kang, because Kang is the only constant in all their timelines. Of Kang the Conqueror being the only constant.
The only thing we all need to keep in mind with What If is it's not. I think it's going to be the most inconsequential of the shows they make, but it's sheer virtue of the way it's made. They cannot get most of those actors back. Some of them, unfortunately, have passed away. So there's no real thing they can take from that and use the proper MCU.
Isn't Jordan Peele the Watcher?
No, it's Jeffrey Wright.
Okay. It would have been cool if Jordan Peele was a watcher, though. That'd be dope.
It would be. All right. I mean, I think we pretty much hit like all of the stuff, right? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want the rundown of what the other MCU show that they're making before we're getting into Loki season 2.
Oh no.
No.
We'll get to those when
We have work tomorrow.
Yeah. Right. All right. With that being said, this has been a wonderful ramble of Press X to Ramble about Loki. We hope you enjoyed this ramble as much as we enjoyed rambling. Don't forget to rate us on your favorite podcasting apps and like and subscribe on your favorite YouTube channel. That's our channel. In case you missed any of this, you can find all the details and more on our website at pressxtostarttv.com. You can also find the different places where we are and where you should follow us. Yes, do that. We'll see you. I guess no. This should come out before the weekly podcast if I'm able to get that done. So we'll see you in our normal weekly podcast. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody.